3 different islands from our participants here today. Excellent. Well, thank you for tuning in. I know there's a lot of different places that we could be, other things that we could be doing. I want to make sure that this is going to be valuable and worth your time. As I kind of go through the intro here, I actually have a slight little task for you. It's not entirely passive where you kind of sit back and watch. I've got one little task for you, which is, as I buy you some time here in the intro, I'm going to ask you, wherever you are, to open up some kind of a document or a blank piece of paper, something where you can externalize your ideas. Word document, notepad, something. And to jot down everything that you either have to do or want to do. I say everything, I mean everything. If it's ever tugged at your attention, pulled you out of the moment and made you think, oh, I got to do this. Whether it's about the laundry, whether it's writing an essay, choosing a speech topic, learning Japanese, traveling to Italy, finding love, whatever the thing is, if it's ever weighed on your mind and it is incomplete, jot it down. This might end up becoming a big giant list, so I will pause you at some point. But kind of passively, as I kind of take you through the intro here, I'm going to ask you to kind of keep compiling this list of anything that's been on your mind that is incomplete. So that's on the back burner, and I will let you know when to stop, right? Because there's going to be a section here where like it becomes a bit more cognitively intense. You got to like tune in. I promise I'll let you know when it's going to be time to check in, so you can get started on that list as we get started here. A little bit of background. This session has a nice catchy name. I didn't think of this name. It's the name of a book. This book is Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity. This is the book that I heard about when I was in college as a student. It was like the go-to productivity book of time management, of accomplishing things, of dealing with things in a way that's less stressful, stuff like that. When I was in college, I wasn't reading books. I was barely reading my own class books. I was mostly asking my girlfriend what the book said for class, and then she would tell me, and I would try to pass the tests. She did a good job explaining, so I married her. Right, so I didn't have time to read my side books, right, like Getting Things Done. But once I graduated, I remembered it, and I brought it back, and I finally did finish it, and it has been amazing. For the last 2 years of my life, this Getting Things Done system has been basically the operating system of my life, and it has delivered on its promise. I've been getting about 10 times the things done with around 1/10 the level of stress and effort. Now that said, I'm not here to draw you into the Getting Things Done cult. That's not what today is all about. If right now you feel like you have some productivity habits and systems in place that work for you, great. I do not want to mess those up. If you feel like you don't want to take on all the stuff we talk about today, but you think 1 or 2 things are pretty helpful, great. Just do those. One of the big important things about our session here today is that if something here helps you, then that's great. It's succeeded. Right? So it's not about having you trying to adopt the entire system, nothing like that. It's just about making sure that you've got some tools at your disposal. So once again, remember, in the background, I'm asking you to compile that list, the list of everything that's been on your mind, every incomplete task that you have, whether you want to, have to complete it, writing essays, doing laundry, calling mom, whatever, leaving that there in the back burner. So anyway, if after today you are interested in more, I can highly, highly recommend this book. I know that the Leeward Community College Library has since made sure to have a couple of copies of this book on hand, and I think that there's also inter-system borrowing, right? So even if you're on Hilo, even if you're on Kauai, you can still borrow the book. If for some reason the library is out of it, shoot me an email. I'll give you my email at the end of the session today, and I will hook you up with a copy that I read, right? I want to make sure that you feel like you've got every resource possible. Here's the idea. If we're talking about tasks and productivity, let's start off at the very beginning. The things that really stress us out aren't actually having tons of things to do. It's the fact that we have knowledge work. If you are tuning in here today, I know that you've got stress in your life because you are a knowledge worker. What does that mean? It means that you're doing work without clean, discrete edges. If you had the job of, picking tomatoes, right? You got to harvest the tomatoes at the end of the season. How do you know when you're done? When there's no more tomatoes. Easy peasy. But that's not currently your task. As a college student, your task is to write an essay, create a science project, form a group presentation. How do you know when an essay is done? How do you know when you've chosen the right topic for your group presentation? There are no longer clean, discrete edges. Tomatoes are gone, job is done. But if the paper is written, couldn't you still revise it a little more? Couldn't you still fix 1 or 2 things there? You could. And so it's possible for these tasks to constantly eat away at our attentions. These are open loops. Open loops are tasks that have gotten incomplete. So what I've actually asked you to write down on your end of the camera there is to start writing down a list of all your open loops. Your open loops could be as simple as washing the dishes. They could be as complex as learning another language someday. Maybe. But all of those things have the capacity to pull us out of the moment. And so this getting things done system is about a method that allows those open loops to be taken care of, to be closed at least for a little while or long enough that you can be totally, fully, completely present with whatever it is you're doing. Whether it's being entirely productive on writing this one essay or just being present while you're there with your family watching a movie or enjoying the beach, everything is kind of in its place so that you can go around with peace of mind and still get everything done. Sounds kind of nice. I'll admit, I'm not living in this like Zen-like state of peace and tranquility all the time. It's not like perfect. I haven't cracked the code, but what I have done is I've made a ton of progress for myself personally. And it was definitely the kind of system that I wish I had as a college student. So here's one of the big ideas behind why we're so stressed out as you continue to write your list. I'll let you know when to tune in, like full on, to put the list aside. We actually don't dread having a ton of things to do. We've always got things to do, and that's actually a good thing. Think about when you have total free time on your hands. What do you want to do then? You want to, I don't know, watch a movie. You want to eat ice cream. You want to just zen out and relax on the couch. Great. Those are still things to do. But it's not that we want nothing to do. We don't like having broken agreements. Imagine this. You make a promise to meet up with somebody on Thursday at 4 o'clock. You don't make it. Ooh. Show up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Ooh. What do we feel? We feel guilt. We feel shame. We feel sorrow. What if we were the person who was supposed to be met at 4 o'clock? The person that was going to meet us doesn't show up. How do we feel then? We feel frustrated, let down, irritated. Well, here's the thing. Whenever we have a task, whenever we have an open loop, and we don't complete the open loop, we have a broken agreement with ourselves. The open loop might be something like, oh, I'm going to write this essay by Friday at 5, right? But, the essay's not done. Or it is done, but it keeps gnawing at our attentions, right? No discrete edges. So now we have this broken agreement. As the deliverer, we feel shame and guilt for not delivering. And as the person who was supposed to be delivered to, we feel anger, frustration, letdown, irritation. All of these feelings that we have, not because we have lots of tasks. We always want to be doing something because something was broken. So what can we do about our agreements? There are 3 things that we can do with our agreements. The first thing we can do is to not make an agreement. The moment we hear it's time to write an essay, we can say, no, I'm not going to write the essay. For some things we can do that, can't do that for everything. The second thing we can do is we can complete the agreement. We can totally get our ideal essay done by Friday at 5 or whatever the time was. The third thing we can do is renegotiate the agreement. If you're waiting on your friend to meet you by a certain time and then you get a text saying, oh, so sorry, I got to meet you at 6 o'clock instead. Fine. It's great. We'll just go, okay, great. See you at 6. We've just kind of snoozed it, right? Now the loop is no longer so wide open. We haven't broken any agreement. We often tend not to think about renegotiating our own open loops in our lives. So if we have a system, a repeatable framework in place, so that any open loop in our lives can be either rejected, completed, or renegotiated, that means that these open loops can be closed. They can be taken care of, and we can be fully present. There are 5 steps to this. The 5 steps that we have are, first of all, everything that's going to enter our lives. And by the way, you can keep building your list. I promise. I'll let you know when it's going to be like focus up time. You can still kind of keep building those lists. The 5 steps are, first of all, to capture every open loop, whether it's take something to the tailor, wash the car, finish the essay. Everything gets captured, written down so that we can see them. We don't want to ever have to try to think or remember what we have to do. Your brain is an amazing, fascinating piece of the universe's technology, but it's a terrible office. Your brain is for having ideas, not for holding ideas. Once you know you got something to do, you capture it. You jot it down, like you're doing right now. The second step is to clarify exactly what has to be done with each of these open loops. Is this actually something I need to take action on? Is it something that somebody else has to take action on? I'm waiting for them, whatever. We have to really identify exactly what this open loop entails. Once we know exactly what's entailed, we need to organize all of these different actions into different buckets. I'm going to show you how every open loop in your entire life can actually fit into one of 7 different buckets. That's it. One of 7 different buckets, and you will have a repeatable framework for putting them there every single time. Once all the tasks have been clarified, they've all been put into their right buckets, they're all in their correct place, assignments have been renegotiated, we're going to meet at 6 as opposed to 5, that feeling's in place, then we can kind of step back, we can see everything all at once. We can decide which things we're going to jump into first, which ones can wait around for a while, and then we can engage. We start getting stuff done. Now that might feel like I'm adding lots more tasks, like you already have all these tasks in front of you and you have to get like these other 5 things done. No. These are going to help you out. I promise. This is the stuff that makes everything else so much easier. Here is the framework. The way the framework works is we start off at the top by capturing. If there is any time to set the list aside and to focus up, this is when it starts. Because this flowchart here has the potential to become the operating system of your life so that you can get everything done with a fraction of the stress. Or if you want to just pick and choose individual things, you can just pick and choose individual things as we go along too. Either way, the most usable stuff is going to come out of this flowchart. So the idea for capturing is we want to make sure all these open loops are accounted for. We've got them in front of us. We can see them. Kind of like an inbox, but for life, where something even as small as wash the dishes goes right next to something as big as buy a house. Now the clarifying stage, actually, let me go back real quick. So for the capturing stage, in life, what this would look like is you want to make sure that there is zero friction between your mind and your inbox. You want to make sure that the moment you're presented with a task, you have the ability to pretty much instantly capture it somewhere that can be written. Now, when this book was first written, the Getting Things Done system was first put out, smartphones weren't really all the rage. This was all about like carrying index cards and notepads and stuff like that. But now, the best possible thing that you can have with you is your phone. You can just have a note-keeping app on your phone. You don't even have to open the app. You can just talk to your phone and be like, add this to the list. The app that I use personally is Google Keep, but you don't have to. On iPhone, there's like Apple Notes and there's Evernote, there's Notion, there's Obsidian, all kinds of stuff. I use Google Keep, but somewhere that there's zero friction. Most of us have our phones somewhere within arm's reach, just about 24/7. So the moment you get an idea, boom, it can go straight into the system with zero friction. Okay, the clarifying stage. What we want to do after we have everything captured is we need to figure out exactly what needs to be done. Is this thing actionable? You know, the nice thing about asking this question is that we realize a bunch of the stuff that comes at us, we don't actually have to take action on. There are a lot of emails that get sent to you that you don't actually have to do anything with. Don't require any response. Don't require you to go write anything. They can just go straight into the archive folder. So let's start off by assuming that there are some of these open loops that come at us that we can say no to, that at least they don't require any immediate action. What happens then? Doesn't mean that they're unimportant, but let's take a peek. You can go into one of 3 different places. One of these places is the trash. Right? If there is something that genuinely just does not require your attention, it was an email blast for the entire class or for the entire campus or something, great. Boom. Get rid of it. Zero open loops. It's out of your life. It's actually a little bit harder to do than it feels like. It kind of feels like we have to attend to everything. But maybe this is something that we might act on one day, just not right now. On that initial list of yours, you might have things like learn Italian, travel to Japan, own a house. What do you do with that? Maybe it is actionable, but not right now or not even anytime soon. Then it can go onto a list called Someday Maybe. This is a nice little list to have around. We all have someday maybe items floating around on us, and they do pull us out of the moment. They nag at our attentions from time to time. They can get accounted for. So that's our someday maybe list. Then we've also got some things that cross our attentions, aren't immediately actionable, but we might use them like information. You find some kind of like a manual for your TV. Your TV is working fine right now, but maybe one day it's going to break and you're going to need like the warranty information. You don't need it now, but you don't want to throw it away. It's not exactly trash. It's not a someday maybe item because you're not like aspiring to use this sometime. So instead, it just goes into a reference folder. That general reference is a collection of information that isn't immediately useful, but it could be useful one day, which means that if you ever do need it, it's always going to be in one place. Reference folder. Okay, so that's for the ideas that are not actionable. If we go back to the flowchart though, and we ask ourselves, is this actionable? For a lot of things, it's going to be yes. Stuff that's not trash, stuff that's not someday maybe, stuff that's not just information. What do we do with those? Well, what we can do is we ask ourselves, will it take less than 2 minutes? If it will take less than 2 minutes, do it right now as you're looking at it. You may have even come across this. This little idea has popped up in productivity and books and things like that. It's called the 2-minute rule, as it's shown up in other places. It actually comes from the Getting Things Done system. If it takes less than 2 minutes, you do it immediately. If there's an email that's staring you in the face, and it's like a yes or no question, give it a yes or no response. Sometimes you'll get like 2 or 3 paragraphs of an email that is ultimately just a yes or no question, or just choosing a date. Like you could just choose a date on a calendar, right? And the amount of time it takes you to hold your breath, we just do it right there. But what if it'll take more than 2 minutes? Lots of things will. Fair enough. So if the thing that we're looking at is actionable, we know exactly what the next action is, it'll take us more than 2 minutes, we got a couple of different options. Now, this depends if the information is actually for us or for somebody else. Things that are across our plate are things that we actually have to do. We might be waiting for someone else. We might have to delegate it. If you've sent out an email because you're working on a class project and you can't do anything until you hear back from your groupmate, that task goes into a waiting list. This is a specific list that you have where you know you're waiting on other people to do specific things. The items on this list might literally sound something like, write the first paragraph of the essay once I hear back from Katie. Right, so you know you're waiting on Katie before you have the information to write the first paragraph of your group essay. So now the loop is closed, right, because you know to wait for it. However, if this is not in somebody else's hands, if it's totally up to you, then you defer it. You snooze it. Kind of like renegotiating the time that you're going to meet up with your friend. We renegotiate the agreement by putting it onto either calendar or a next actions list. Now, if this action that you have to take has a specific time bound to it, easy choice, it just goes straight onto a calendar. You could just talk to your phone. You could just say, Siri, schedule this on this date, boom, and it's done. Easier than it's ever been. Now, if it's not time bound, it's just the kind of thing that will get done the next time you're sitting down to actually accomplish tasks and work on things, then it goes to your next actions list. Guarantee if you are here in this session today, you have heard of a to-do list. A to-do list is just kind of a basic, generic, watered-down version of the next actions list, of the things I'm going to do once I sit down to start doing things. That's your next actions list, kind of the classic to-do list. You've already filtered away the someday maybes, like go to Japan. You've filtered away the stuff that requires other people's actions, like waiting on Katie's email, and you've filtered away the things that are time-bound, like I've got to jump into this Zoom call on Friday at noon. That's on the calendar. All the other things that aren't time-bound, depending on other people, or someday maybe, are right here for you, which means that you can act on them instantly. Here's what's nice about the next actions list. One of the reasons that we tend not to take action on stuff is because we haven't clarified them. The car is having problems, and you know to yourself that I need to fix the car. The problem with fix the car is that it's not actually a task. If you walk outside and you start looking at your car and you have to fix the car, what do you literally do? That's not an action. The next action might be something like, so how would you fix the car? Let's work backwards. Maybe you fix the car by like taking it into the shop, right? Great. Okay. But you don't know which shop to take it into. Dang. Okay. So what do? You got to figure out which shop to take it into. How would you do that? Well, you'd open up Google and you would search for service stations nearby. Great. Your next action is not fix the car. Your next action is Google nearby service stations. That's pretty doable. What most of us have are kind of broad, vague, unclarified projects. And those things require effort. They burn calories to think about what the actual steps are to take. We don't like doing that, so we put them off later and later and later. Write an essay. What does write an essay actually look like? You don't just sit in front of your computer and like write an essay. You list 5 topics first. That you could do, right? Or you write 1 paragraph. That you can do. That's a specific next action. If you actually leave the session today and you forget everything, you're like, oh, okay, like 7 lists, 5 steps, too much. This guy's into productivity, but it's ridiculous. Great. Take away one thing. This is the only thing you take away today, is to turn your tasks into specific next actions. There's no more fix the car. There is Google service stations. There's no more choose a topic. It's email Katie for topic ideas. Right? You can send an email. You can Google a thing. Here's the takeaway. The items that go onto your next actions list, they should all begin with a specific verb. We're talking things like email blank, call so-and-so, search blankly blank, right? It's never going to be something that's kind of broad that's lingering on the mind. That's what typically tends to keep us from doing things. We haven't clarified well enough. Next actions list forces us to clarify our next steps. Let's backtrack here for a second. So we're going back to the next action, asking if it'll take less than 2 minutes. There might be things that'll actually take us many, many actions. Writing an essay, fixing the car, those would be our projects. By definition, are any tasks that require multiple steps. So if you have a multiple issue, that's your project, and you can put that on a project list. You review this list to then kind of squeeze out individual next actions. That's where things like fix the car can give you specific next actions like Google service stations, or write that group presentation becomes email Katie, stuff like that. So we're starting to do specific physical measurable actions. So once you have that projects list, you can kind of squeeze them out. So that means, zooming out here, of everything that ever crosses your attention, from do the dishes to travel to Japan, it would all end up in only one of 7 places. Most of us don't even do that first step. Most of us don't even articulate what the tasks are that are pulling at our attentions. That list that I had you generate at the beginning. We don't even do that. We just walk around with kind of a general feeling of anguish and obligation and malaise. And so we usually just escape. We do the equivalent of stuffing our head in the ground. Just put on Netflix or play video games and lounge about on the couch. So even just having that first initial inbox is going to set you apart from almost everybody else. It's also helpful to know that everything on that list has a specific place to live. So if you look at that initial list and you think, oh my gosh, this is overwhelming, there's way too much to do in life, they've all got a place. And it's only going to be one of those 7. So what have we done so far? Every open loop, we have clarified exactly what needs to be done, distilled them into specific next actions. We've turned fix the car into Google service stations. And now we've organized them all. Each specific next action is now where it needs to be. A waiting for list, a projects list, a someday maybe, a next actions, the calendar. So they're taken care of. They've all been renegotiated. It allows us to kind of catch our breath. The reflect stage is when we zoom out and we take a look at all these different things. From time to time, we want to look over all of our someday maybe items. Because you never know. You might have an opportunity right now to accomplish something that you wish you did 3 years ago. You might even be pleased to realize that you've accomplished a ton of your someday maybes. You would only know that because reflecting also means looking over that projects list and wringing out any specific next actions, turning them into specific next steps. You'll also have an idea of who you need to reach out to. Maybe you haven't heard from your group mate Katie in a while, so it's time to send her another nudge. It's been like a week since you heard from her. All right, send another nudge. But you don't have to think about it because that waiting for list is right there reminding you. And of course, the calendar. It's good to look over the calendar because then you have an idea of what things are coming up there in front of you. That's what the reflect stage is doing. The reflect stage allows you to be aware, kind of in a passive, comfortable way, of all these different things from the 7 different buckets. You've heard every open loop in your life. You've distilled each one of them into a specific next action. You've organized them into the 7 possible buckets they can go into. And you are aware of these different things in your life, which means you don't have to think about them. You burn no calories trying to remember what you have to do. That already is worth the price of admission. That already is a nice, more comfortable, stress-free life. It's time to start doing things. The engage step here, there's actually not a lot to talk about. The engage step is just doing the stuff. Picking one of the lists to work on, usually your next actions list, and just start at the top and work your way through them. One of the helpful things that I've found, and it's starting to show up more and more now in other productivity workshops, I'm glad to hear it, is the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro technique is set a timer for 25 minutes. Do nothing else but work down your list of next action items for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, stop. Take a break for 5 minutes. Doesn't matter if you're on a roll. Doesn't matter if you're about to have like a breakthrough or an epiphany. Nope, stop. Because the rhythm is more important than the results. You want to make sure that the inputs that you have are predictable and repeatable. The first team, there were 2 teams that were trying to make it to the South Pole at the same time. First time we ever made it to the South Pole. One team was like going as hard as they could every day, especially when there was like nice clear weather. The other team went 15 miles per day, no matter what. Tough weather, 15 miles. Great weather, we had lots of energy to spare. Great. 15 miles, stop. Just cruise the rest of the day. All right. Team that made it was the 15 miles a day team, not the go hard all the time team. That team froze to death. The first time we made it to the South Pole was because we had a rhythm rather than trying to strive for the results. Pomodoro technique, it's kind of like that to help you engage with your tasks. The outputs will come. You will get things done. Just 25 minutes at a time, 5-minute break, 25 minutes at a time, 5-minute break. If you encroach on the break time, then it means future you will no longer trust the system. Future you will think, no, there's actually no breaking. It's just work, and kind of freak out away from it. Kind of nice just to have those pre-planned breaks. Helps us engage and get those things. Oh. What kinds of questions, comments, thoughts, worries might you have? If you want to know, other people want to know too. Oh, I'm curious. Show of hands. There's a lot of things I was running through here because like there's a flow chart. There's all these different terms and stuff. How many of you here would like a copy of the slides? I think probably more than any other session I've seen, like this flow chart is the thing that, yeah, Evelana, you're down. Okay. Could I then propose a little trade? All the slides for like 2 minutes. 2 minutes of your time. Yeah, Trevor, you're down. Right on. All yours. If nothing else, just like this the flowchart alone. If you didn't read the book and you just had that flowchart in front of you, like next to your computer screen, that already would just make things so much easier. So I can offer you a little trade. All the slides for 2 minutes. If you don't mind, I got a little link here for you. We want to make sure that these sessions are as valuable to you as they can possibly be. We only want things here that are actionable, that are going to help you in your real life. So if you don't mind, if you got a cell phone handy next to you, you probably do, because you can put your list into it. Or if you like, you can click on that link to go to a little evaluation. An evaluation of this session, this workshop right here. It'll only take a couple of minutes, super quick. If you're a free diver, you could do it in the amount of time that it takes you to hold your breath. And at the very end, you're going to end up with a download of these slides. They're waiting for you in PDF format. We're kind of experimenting with this new survey system here. Kind of want to test it out, see how it goes there for you. But check it out. It's helpful. We want to know what kinds of things you thought were valuable so we can do way more of those things. We want to know what things didn't work in this session so we can do less of those things. Ultimately, this workshop series, kind of like in the same way I said, this is the workshop that I wish I had as a college student because I didn't read the book. Basically, we want to turn all of these sessions into that, right? The kinds of stuff that we wish we had when we were in college. But we can only do that with your input. So check it out. You can scan the QR code. You can just type in that code, or you could even click on the link there in chat. Whatever is easiest for you. Got a few little final thoughts here for you to make some of this stuff really, really actionable. So zooming out, let's say you're comfortable with the system. You know your 5 steps. You got your 7 different buckets, right? You got your list set up. Or maybe you've already decided to yourself, no, this is too much. I'm only going to have a next actions list. Or you've decided to yourself, no, I'm only ever going to think in terms of next actions. Great. Or I'm just going to use the 2-minute rule. Great. Whatever. Found things for you here that are helpful. What could you do right now? Let's say you didn't want to overhaul your entire life to implement a new productivity system. But it might be convenient just to have an easier time with emails. You could do nothing else but apply this system to your emails and have so much less stress in your life. So much more relief. Like with labels. All of us here with our emails are in through UH, we have like Gmail, right? Because UH uses Gmail. You can create labels in Gmail. You can have a next actions label, a waiting for label, a someday maybe label. And what about the capture part? That's your inbox. It's already there, right? Every new email shows up in your inbox. But what you can do is when you look at them, don't sit down and like start answering them. What most of us do is we see this like big giant list of emails and we go, oh, it's so much. We do a few of them and we leave the rest. And so inevitably our emails will have like hundreds or even thousands of emails in them, right? You know what I mean? It's entirely possible though, just using this system, even if you don't use it for the rest of your life, just for your emails, you can keep your email inbox at 0 using this system with just those labels. Everything shows up in your email inbox. And when it's time, what you do is you don't sit down to answer emails. You look at them and you clarify, does this require an action? If it doesn't, boom, trash. Easy. If it's a someday maybe, you just give it the label, you move it to someday maybe. Boom, and there it goes. You just leave it there, right? If you know that this thing requires action and it'll take longer than 2 minutes to answer it. Put it in next actions. Boom, next actions, right? If you see an email that requires your action, but you're waiting on somebody else, put it in waiting for. So what you've done is you've renegotiated everything from the inbox. You've cleared it out. Inbox is at 0. When it's time for you to actually sit down and answer emails, when you decide that's email answering time, now you can just go straight to your next actions folder and just answer those emails. If it sounds like this is like extra work, it won't feel like it. Why won't it feel like it? Because all these actions of like deciding someday, maybe, waiting for next action, all that stuff, you're going to do anyway. In fact, that's probably why our email inboxes fill up so much already. Because we get hit with that. We think to ourselves, it's email time. No, it's not email time. It should be answer only those emails that require a response. Right? But we have to figure out which ones require a response. We have to figure out which ones we're waiting on other people for. We have to burn extra calories. We just didn't know we were burning those calories. So if you intentionally decide which ones go in which buckets, it makes it so much easier when you go, all right, now it's answering emails time, and you do only the next actions, and you're done. Maybe one day on like a Saturday afternoon, you're like, man, let's just see what was around. And you just go perusing your someday maybes. And you go, oh yeah, look at that. I got an email to a link of this webinar like 3 months ago. I'll check it out. Who cares? I'll watch it now, which means that everything is put in its place. Pretty cool. So if you did nothing else after today, you just made 3 Gmail labels that could dramatically improve your workflow. I've been talking pretty much exclusively about the system from the book Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's the book that was on my list, but I never read in college. It's the book that I wish I read in college. But if this is the kind of thing you're interested in, you track down the book, maybe you want more stuff after that, great. Here are a few other recommendations I have for you. Another amazing book is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. This is about creating behavior change for all kinds of stuff. Do you want to stop biting your nails? Do you want to stop smoking? Do you want to start running? Do you want to start journaling? Do you want to stick to a good habit where like you build a business or for where you get all your assignments done? Whatever that long-term behavior change is that you want, Atomic Habits by James Clear would be my first recommendation. If you feel like you're overwhelmed, there's just too much going on, these next two are a great combination. Deep Work by Cal Newport and Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. Amazing productivity books for if you've got like your getting things done system up and running there for you, but it still feels kind of overwhelming, like there are too many things nagging at your attention. These offer great techniques for how to like set things aside and to create your own little personal bubble of productivity. Hopefully those are helpful. And again, if your library doesn't have them or if you have trouble finding them, you can always shoot me an email and I can hook you up with the versions that I read. Boom, there's my email there in chat. You can hang on to that. And even if we're not at the same campus, doesn't matter. Consider me a resource. My door is always open. All right. What kinds of questions, comments, thoughts, worries we got so far before I give you some final takeaway action items here? Was the survey working out for us? This is the first time I tried using that link, by the way. You can let me know. I was using that little URL shortener thingy. I hadn't tried that before. If it gives you any troubles, don't suffer in silence. Okay. 3 things you can do right now. I've been talking like large frameworks and broad principles, but what do you literally do? Ooh, open in Firefox only? Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, I'll have to tinker around and make sure that they work more conveniently for you. It should have been a download for a PDF. Good to know if it was only Firefox. So you did the survey. You got yourself the slides, so you have a copy of the flowchart. You can do that. The specific actionable items for you. What we can do is we can, first of all, list all of our open loops. Right? That was the very first thing I asked you to do as soon as you came into the room, is to start writing down everything that tugs at your attention. The first time I did this, it legit took me 2 days. It took me forever to write down everything that had nagged at my attention. But you'll only have to do this once. After that, every time there's a new open loop, it'll go straight into your system. It'll be like, how does David Allen call it? It's like having a mind like water. That's what he called it. Mind like water. Because you're always just kind of going with the flow. But the first time is going to feel a little brutal. So we'll just get that out of the way. You list them down. Doesn't matter where you list them. Could be a piece of paper, could be Google Keep, could be Obsidian, could be Notion. First time I did it was just a literal piece of paper. Is to prepare your lists. You're going to have a projects list for your multi-step items, a next actions list, a waiting for list, and a someday maybe list. I'm assuming you already have a calendar because your UH account is attached to Google Calendar. And I'm assuming you also have a trash can that's already made. So you don't have to make those, but you have to make your projects, next actions, waiting for, and someday maybe lists. And of course, if you're looking to make all this stuff immediately actionable, because even if you haven't made your initial inbox list, I know that you have an inbox waiting for you. So you could also make your next actions, waiting for, and your someday maybe labels in Gmail and start reaping the benefits of this while you're still sitting here. Even like before the next time you use the bathroom, you can start reaping the benefits of this system in your own email inbox. I've also been told that I look like I'm the guy from Jackbox Games. Let's see. But no, I've not done Mind Lab or Math Lab. It says every Wednesday and Friday until December 6th. Oh, cool. Every Wednesday and Friday until December 6th. That's amazing. I remember when there were like 4 sessions throughout the entire semester. 2 every week. That's phenomenal. Okay. Well, anyways, you have my email, everybody there from chat. My door is open. Even if we go to different campuses, doesn't matter. Consider me a resource. I really appreciate you coming out here. Thank you so much. Feel free to ask any questions, stick around, talk shop, or reach out someday, maybe, as the case may be. Thank you also for jumping onto that survey and for giving us your feedback. We really appreciate it. Thank you all so much.